Hi there everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and believe you me, after 500,000 gems spent since April when I started streaming properly, I can safely say that streamer luck is a myth. Welcome to today's video for Should You Pull on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Today we're going to be talking about 9 and the event that comes along with him. And 9 is a character that a lot of people will bypass, I believe, probably because, like myself, I'm sure a lot of people have had a lot of their resources cleaned out by the combination of Noctis and Basch recently. But 9 actually has some pretty nice stuff going for him, so if that's all stuff that you're interested in, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. Twitch this week, I wanted to give a quick shout out to each of you that came along to my Street Fighter stream that I did at the beginning of the week. It was actually very successful and it's something that I do plan on doing a little bit more of in the future, so I wanted to extend a big thank you to all of you guys. Of course, I will be streaming 9's event on the day that it is released as well, so if you want to come and find me on Twitch, then by all means follow that link in the description box below. On Patreon, I shout out one of my patrons at random every time I release a new video, and today that person is going to be Sixtails. So thank you very much for your support. You guys know how much it means to me that any of you would want to take the time to support the channel as much as you do, so thank you all very much. Don't forget to check out all of the websites as you can see around me just now, links in the description box below for anything related to Opera Omnia, and of course don't forget to check out all the content creators out there besides myself. So let's start the video off by having a look at 9 himself. He's the only character that has anything new. We still are within Noctis's burst area of banners. So 9 is the only character that gets anything new, given that he's a brand new character. The best way I can feel to describe 9 is another tank that is somewhere between Basch and Warrior of Light with a buttload of damage tacked on. So basically, he is a character that revolves a lot around shields, much in the same fashion that Warrior of Light does. Although his Primal Roar and Whirling Lance also give a sort of brave shield so that you take less bravery damage. So it says here it's by 20%, but as you can see with his 15 CP, that's actually increased quite a lot. So it does actually make a huge difference, but it also does a large amount of AoE bravery hits and a split HP damage. It also gives him stacks of Wild Roar, which is a buff that he gets that increases his max bravery, his attack and his speed, and his max bravery and attack increase further for every stack of Wild Roar he has up to a limit of 5. And if you're fighting more than one enemy, so this is where the Basch bit comes in because he likes to fight more than one enemy, he gets more stacks more quickly. And then Whirling Lance is a AoE Brave HP attack. It's single target with splash damage, and the splash damage actually does increase quite substantially once you get to having Whirling Lance Plus, which you get by having 5 stacks of Wild Roar, and it also heals him. Now if we have a look at his extensions on his abilities, this is a 6-hit Brave HP attack that also has 50% splash damage. It also gets even more splash damage once you've put the 35 CP on, so it's actually 80% splash damage altogether. So you're getting quite a lot of damage for an ability that's designed to heal you. Originally, it normally only heals him, but once you've given him his 60 passive, it actually heals the other party members as well, as long as it's healing him above his own max HP. So in a similar way to how Leon would work. Now, he also provides sort of like some party buffs here and there with HP and bravery, but the thing that makes 9 a bit more unique is the way his LD works. Now, 9's LD actually doesn't do damage, which is the first we've seen in an LD. It instead batteries the party, extends active buffs by turn, so it extends the buff so that it's a free turn essentially, has no action delay, all that stuff. But it also gives him a buff called White Knight, which makes it so that the next time he would take HP damage, he doesn't take it. But what happens here is that if that is taken away, or if he would take an HP hit, it instead dispels itself and becomes a different buff called Rebellious Fangs. Now, White Knight increases his attack and his max Brave overflow limit by a little bit, which is nice, and obviously makes it so he doesn't take an HP hit. But then Rebellious Fang also increases his attack even further and raises all of his overflow limit quite substantially. Now, the buffs that you get from Power Stones are what you would typically get from any kind of LD. There's nothing major, so you get more Rebellious Fangs if you get it. So it starts with 6 turns of White Knight, and then it goes to 6 turns of Rebellious Fangs if you get it. And then it also gives you an extra skill use of it, so it's actually got 4 skill uses on an LD, which is great, and it raises his attack. His EX, however, is mostly a massive damage-dealing attack that will deal sort of AoE Brave HP attacks like multiple times, which is always great because having multiple dumps of bravery within an attack means that if you are battering him, it doesn't go to waste. It also has Brave Overflow, which doesn't sound like a lot initially, but it does stack up when you include his White Knight buff, his Rebellious Fangs buff, all of that stuff. It all adds up, and it also gives him another buff called Wild Lancer. So he does give himself quite a lot of buffs, so you have to be very careful sort of teaming him up with other characters. Basch also has this problem. And it also heals him up, just like his skill 2 does, so you're able to go about it that way. And it also gives himself, like I said, the Wild Lancer buff, which raises his attack and increases his overflow limit again, so that he's actually got a very large amount of attack power and overflow limit. When you go to put in sort of ingots, books, things like that, it gives him a party-wide buff at 1 out of 3 for max bravery and attack. He also gets the HP recovery extended to his party, just like his 35, which is fantastic. And then the second, so with the second tier of ingots, then he gets it so his first skill use doesn't count, except obviously for his LD, because otherwise that would be really stupid. So he's able to set up the shield straight away. And he also starts with Wild Lancer and 3 levels of Wild Roar, so he's able to get to his plus versions of his Wyvern Lance much, much quicker. And then when you go 3 out of 3, the reason I haven't mentioned any Braver HP pluses just yet is because he gets better ones when he's maxed out his EX. With Laser Lance, which the EX attacks itself, you now get 6 hits between each HP attack, so it's actually really quite powerful. Expect to be dealing 9999, 99999 3 times across the board, and you're also going to be getting splash damage on the last hit that will extend to the other characters. So he's got a lot going for him in terms of damage, and then he also gets Jump Plus and High Jump Plus. High Jump Plus is basically a slightly weaker version of Aranea's High Boost Lance, where it's a 3-hit AoE Brave attack with a splash damage HP attack that is only 20% as opposed to Aranea's 50%. But bearing in mind that he gets a gargantuan amount of Brave Overflow limit thanks to the amount of buffs that he has, this can actually do a really large amount of damage very quickly, so his longevity does benefit quite heavily from it. Like I said, 9 is somewhere between Basch and Warrior of Light, but with a higher focus on actual damage output, because Wyvern Lance does a lot of damage. His EX does an absolutely staggering amount of damage in the right situations. He's got attack and max brave buffs all around, not just for himself but for his party as well. He doesn't have quite as much survivability as Basch does, but then not many characters do. And I say that with a pinch of salt because 9's still got a pretty heavy amount of survivability. Like, he doesn't take HP damage after he's used his LD. Those shields are going to come in really nicely. He's also got the ability to just heal himself and his party as much as he needs to, and it all adds up. However, I feel that if you already have Basch and you plan to pull for Warrior of Light, Warrior of Light has a much higher defensive capabilities for the party in general when he gets his LD, and Basch is very, very good at kind of redirecting everything to himself so that he's basically invincible. Between the last stand, the fact that he can't go below 50% HP, the fact that he can heal himself with his HP plus, there's a lot of things that Basch has that 9 doesn't, there's a lot of things that 9 has that Basch doesn't, but personally I feel that because Basch has the more unique niche of the AoE HP being redirected to himself, and then Warrior of Light, when he comes around with his LD, which actually is only like 5 or 6 weeks away, being able to kind of just protect the party and fulfill that job better. The main reason you would want to go for 9 is if you wanted a tank that had a higher damage output, which honestly, in the era of characters like Noctis, etc., I don't feel like he's as necessary as the other two either side of him. Artifacts are lovely and simple for 9. Attack 108, he's a damage dealing tank, you want attack. And then Reckless Spearman increases his max bravery and his attack while he's got Wild Roar. So if you're using 9, he's going to have Wild Roar stacked. So honestly, offensive stats all round for 9. So now let's look at 9's event himself. So we get some more lovely Type-0 music, which we've had a lot of because there's been a lot of Type-0 banners, but honestly the music from that game I actually really appreciate, so I'm happy to see it. But we're also going to be seeing the Wall Commander and Wolves on the Wave 1, which are, there's nothing particularly special about them. We've encountered them numerous times across the story, lost chapters, events, that we've had loads of those come about, and they don't do anything out of the ordinary. They buff themselves, they have high turn rate, that's pretty much it. And then the actual boss of 9's event is going to be the Esprit Doll. Now the Esprit Doll main focus is kind of manipulating the turns of its 2 mini Esprit Dolls in order to be able to deal multiple Brave HP attacks across the board. So you're expected to bring along either a tank or somebody that can reduce HP damage or somebody that can reduce bravery damage, so that you're expected to be able to take a lot of hits. 9 is a tank. And Basch, being a Lost Chapter character, is also a synergy character here, so he's going to function fantastically. But if you don't have either Basch or 9, then you're going to want to bring someone who can reduce bravery damage or basically keep you in tip-top shape so you don't just die like to multiple brave HP attacks all over the place. So characters like Gabranth with the bravery reduction, Porum with the HP plus, with Lena with her gargantuan recovery abilities, Afmau, anything like that. Well, they're all Desh even. Desh is actually going to be really good just by reducing bravery damage. And having those kinds of defensive capabilities will help you a great deal here. They also have a habit of inflicting a debuff called Stop, which stops your EX gauge from gaining for a turn. So basically it's going to make your EX recast that much slower, and this can actually be a bit of a problem if you're used to having the longevity that an EX can give you by being a recastable attack, and if you're not able to cast that as often, you're going to have to do something to fill in the turns that you would have used it in. So if you've got debuff evasion like Lena, as I said before, or Afmau, then they're going to help out here. They also have some delay in their turns when they break you. Like some of their attacks, if they do break you, they'll actually delay you further. So just be very careful of that. Characters like Eld, Nash, or Machina, with their really high turn rates, their ability to just spam attacks, are going to do really well here. Kais is also very good here by just being able to manipulate the turns back at them. But quite honestly, the synergy characters here being Basch and Noctis, and Fujin for that matter, because the enemies are weak to wind as well, you're just going to decimate the enemies, because quite frankly 90% of players are going to have pulled for either Noctis or Basch or both, or 9 for that matter. If you don't already have Noctis Burst, you can pull for him and hope to get it on that banner, but you're going to have at least one synergy character, certainly if you've been following advice from my videos. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem here. If you've got Noctis and his LD and his Burst, honestly, the event's a little bit of a joke, so I wouldn't worry too heavily about it. And if you've got Basch, you really don't need to worry about pulling for 9 if it's the Chaos Challenge that you're worried about. So now we come to the big question of the video: should you pull on 9's banner? Now, I personally think that the main focus of not pulling on 9's banner is, quite frankly, how your resources are looking, because Noctis has cleaned a lot of people out, myself included. I've spent 125k pitying Noctis's burst, which hurt a lot. And if you still don't have Noctis's burst and you have his LD and you have Basch's LD, you've been fortunate, then you could pull on 9. He's actually pretty good. He is very good, and a lot of people feel that tanks are such a commodity that you should pull on every tank. And I don't disagree with that. However, I do think that 9, because he's kind of pulling from 2 different characters' kinds of abilities, and then just adding damage on top of it, I think that if you're wanting to pull for Warrior of Light, you don't need to pull for 9. If you have no intention of pulling for Warrior of Light, however, having a shield-based tank is really important because they help out in a lot of ways, and 9's healing capabilities are very strong. They do help him out quite a great deal, and his damage output is really good. That EX will hit very, very hard, so just be aware of that, and 9 will do you well. However, like I said, I think that so many players have pulled for Noctis and for Basch already that your resources are going to be cleared out, and you're going to want a recovery period from that before Arden, before Edward, and before Warrior of Light, Kurasame, Kuja, Gladio, Lightning, Rude. There's so many banners that are good at this point, or that are really great, that having a banner that you can go, or maybe I don't need to pull for 9 is a good thing. So for me to sit there and say you don't have to pull for him is not to say that 9 is bad, because he isn't. He's really good. But there's got to be a stopgap somewhere where people can recover their resources, certainly after these last 2 banners. If you already have Basch, then you don't need 9, if you ask me. I think Basch covers the near future for tanking extremely well, and it's not that far away until Warrior of Light comes around with his LD and his burst, and his tanking capability shoots through the roof as well. So if you've got those 2, then 9 is less necessary. If you haven't got those 2, then really you should go pull for Basch. But if you haven't got those 2 and you want to pull for a Type-0 character because you like them, then he is still really good. So that's going to be all for today's video. Sound off in the comments below and let me know whether you plan on pulling for 9, whether you plan on waiting, whether it's actually like one of his banner mate characters that you're looking for, maybe Barrett for example, or Fujin. If you missed Fujin the first time around, perhaps you'll be gunning for her. Let me know in the comments below what your plans are for this banner and who you plan to take for the Chaos event as well. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course if you really want to help me out, share the video and click that bell for notifications on any future Dissidia videos I might be making, and come and tune in to come and find me on Twitch as well when 9's event goes live this weekend, or just before this weekend. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video or stream. Take care.